someone had a question kind of with respect to that, and with respect to ocean debris, with what's the best thing we can do. Who had that question? Oh, that was Amanda again. Go ahead.
Brendan kind of already phrased it, but like, it's what can we do from home on an individual level to stop the debris from getting into the ocean, because I know that that's kind of the place where it needs to happen, because cleaning it up is hard.
Right. Absolutely. So I think this might speak to another question as well about misconceptions, but something that's really challenging in trying to figure out solutions, right, is that even if you're doing all the right things, even if you're composting everything that's compostable and recycling properly and throwing out your waste properly, there's no way for us as individuals to guarantee that the waste we put into that bin is going to the correct place, because there's sources of error in transportation, in it blowing onto a street and going down a sewer, and it blowing from a landfill and it being put into the improper place, and the recycling, like you're saying, being contaminated by other things that people aren't reading carefully, or wish cycling, which is thinking like, oh, I'll just throw it in there, hopefully it's recyclable and that will work, and then it contaminates the whole thing. So unfortunately, even if you're doing absolutely everything within your power right to make sure the waste you produce is handled correctly, there's no guarantee that it's not becoming marine debris. So the most important thing we can do is scale back the amount of things that you're using and creating waste altogether. And that can feel really daunting to think about overnight, like what all the things you throw away in a day, especially the single-use plastic type of things, and how to cut those out. So my advice is always to take one little step at a time. Think about something in your life that maybe you can make a shift, make it, and then if it works for you, awesome, move on to the next thing. And if it doesn't, figure out a new way. And I'm still working with this personally. I drink 1,000 cups of tea a day, and my whole team was on me a couple weeks ago because there was a paper published about how there's microplastics in tea bags. So they were like, Demi, you need to do something. And they were all on my case about it. So I got a strainer and the loose leaf tea leaves, and now I brew my tea from loose leaf tea. And that's just something that I can do that was easy for me to switch, and it reduces the amount of waste that I am personally responsible for. So I think small kind of steps like that you can think about in your individual life are going to do the best things for the ocean.
Excellent. Thank you so much. You know, and I apologize, you guys. I skipped a really great question about challenges and challenges you faced. Who framed that question?
Oh, that was me.
Gabe, you want to ask your question? I'm sorry about that.
Yeah. What is the biggest challenge that you faced in your line of work?
Yeah, that's a really good question, right? So I think whether it's marine debris or protecting endangered species or any other kind of conservation role that you could take on, the biggest challenge is behavior change. What we basically we're agents of behavior change. All of conservation kind of boils down to that, right? Whether we're talking about using less single-use plastics, or changing the way you fish, or changing the way you boat, or changing the way you live your everyday life. Most people make the choices that they make because they're convenient, or they're easy, or they're cost effective. And sometimes things that we need to suggest are not any of those things. They're harder, they're more expensive, and they take more time. So I think learning the science of behavior change and how to message things properly and consider the audience you're speaking to is the biggest challenge. And if we all knew how to change behaviors, we would do it quickly, and then we could all get different jobs, right? So I think learning behavior change and kind of the social science aspects behind conservation are the biggest challenge.
Excellent. Yeah, behavioral changes. I think you have to kind of make it sleek and attractive and stylish in a way. And that, you know, when I think of water bottles, you know, in the last, 5 or 6 years, they've really come out with some cool branding of, you know, the double insulated water bottles, which have existed for, you know, decades, many, many decades, but now they're cool. And I definitely, I like taking around my hydro flask or what's the other one, guys? I'm thinking of
Clean Canteen. That's what I have.
Yeah, clean.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Bouncing down, a student had a question about kinds of trash. If you recognize that as yours, please go ahead and ask it.
Well,
Anybody recognize that as their question?
Are you talking about my question, Brendan?
No, someone had asked the question, what kinds of trash? Anyone? Oh, I'll go ahead and ask it. Sorry
That
about
one.
that.
That one's mine. I'm just because it's several down the list from where we were, and I thought we were doing this in order.
Sure. Yeah, we're back on the order now. Rachel, go ahead.
Okay. So what kind of trash that we might not think is a problem that causes significant damage? Like, I know everyone's like, there was this huge outcry about plastic straws but like, how much of that is reality and might the average person not think of that really does damage the ocean quite a lot?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question. And I think to a certain extent, it kind of depends on where you are. So for New England, I would say it's probably the trash that we find on our beaches, about 50% consumer debris, like straws and coffee cups, cigarette butts, things like that. And 50% is fishing gear, because of course we have an enormous lobster industry. And that's a lot of the trash that we see. So I know immediately I can see a tiny fragment that's a millimeter big of any piece of a lobster pot. And I know what it is because I see it so often. So, I think it just, again, it comes back down to like being super conscious of the things that you're using and throwing away so that they don't have the chance to become marine debris, because no matter where you are, consumer debris, like things that we would use in our everyday life, are going to be a part of it. It just depends on what other industries are going on in the marine environment in your geographic location to determine the rest of the gear. So we in New England work with the lobstermen a lot about, if they're considering replacing any of the plastic pieces of their cages with other materials, how they can prevent their traps from becoming derelict in the first place, like how to rig up their lines and check them every so often, and prevent them from becoming lost at sea so they don't wash up and become marine debris. And I think I would say I'll have to ask Sherry, she's our California regional coordinator, but I know her and I have talked about the pots and traps issue before, because she has a lot of crabbers that she works with as well. So it depends if it's heavy shipping area or a heavy fishing area, or just a city center like outside of New York City or Boston. The trash will vary depending on where you are.
Do small changes in lifestyle intended to avoid producing waste actually help in a measurable way?
I would say yes. I think they do. And I think I'm not well versed on the studies, but I think there have been studies put into place in cities and towns that have things like straw bans or plastic bag bans, and if they see a reduction in the amount of debris on their beaches before and after, and I think they have. So even though it feels silly, and maybe dragging your metal straw around to Starbucks with you doesn't feel like you're saving the world, you definitely are. And it feels like an individual effort, but think about even if just everyone in your school did it too. That's a huge amount of debris every day that could be saved.
Thanks for watching. For more information, visit our website at www.futurefrogmen.org.